One of the disappointing performances at UFC 309 was minus 1,300 betting favorite Bo Nickal's win over Paul Craig. If you look at the UFC stats here, and this is not the be-all end-all, but he had a pretty close fight with Paul Craig. He did end up winning. I don't think there's any debate that he won, but if you look at the significant strikes, just as a quick example here, Bo Nickal only landing 54 significant strikes, 47 for Paul Craig. This fight was a lot closer than it looked. Bo Nickal did not look like the betting favorite he was. He ended up winning, but it was a fight that, was not very appealing. And I think really tempered expectations of Bo Nickal after that type of performance. He did end up getting the win, but people were expecting a finish, and that's not what happened. But today, Bo Nickal went on Ariel Helwani's show, and I think made things a lot worse. It's kind of concerning, actually, to hear some of the things that he's saying. We're going to go through these right now. I'm going to talk about what I think could be in store for the future for Bo Nickal. But let's first hear some of these clips from the interview. You can watch the full thing. I have the link in the description of this video. But here's Bo Nickal talking about his performance on Saturday night after looking back.
Take any high-level fighter or any person, a high-level coach, and have them watch that fight, and they're going to say that was not competitive. It was 30-27, not close. He had zero big moments. The only time that he had a good moment was checking a kick of mine, and he landed no power shots. He had no momentum ever.
And quickly going to interrupt him here. You see the black eye? He didn't land anything? Come on. There's that. And the stats that I just showed. 54-47. So 63% to 36%. Again, Paul Craig threw a lot more than Bo Nickal did, but Paul Craig also landed 48 times, 54 just for Bo Nickal. So right off the bat, not sounding too good. Like, Bo's making it out like Paul didn't do anything in this fight. He absolutely did. Otherwise, why do you got the black eye? It's as simple as that.
I cut him. I hit him in the body. I hit him in the legs, and I rocked him at the end. If I would have been more aggressive, I probably could have finished him. So let's take that as, the facts of what happened. And realize that they're mad about that. But if I go out there and knock him out in 30 seconds or submit him or whatever, all they're going to say is Paul Craig sucks. Oh, this guy sucks. Bo Nickal needs to fight better guys. He's a can crusher. And so it's like,
I don't know about that though, because Caio Borrahio finished Paul Craig in his last fight, and I don't think anyone said that about him. Now, granted, the expectations on Bo Nickal are a lot different than Caio Borrahio, but I don't think people were saying that about Brendan Allen when he finished Paul Craig or Caio Borrahio. So this sounds, I don't know. Again, so far, not so good for Bo Nickal here, saying that, of course, fans would have wanted a finish. Why wouldn't they have wanted to see a finish as opposed to a decision? I'm not liking what Bo's saying here right now.
Like, all right, well, no matter what, however I win, it's not going to make anybody any happier. But yeah, that's just the reality of the situation.
Okay, so yeah, again, not a fan of what Nickal's saying here. How hard would it for him to be like, look, I should have performed better? Like, he even alluded to it there. He's like, I could have been a little bit more aggressive. All he had to do in this interview is say, hey, you know what? Should have been more aggressive, should have finished him. I'll do better next time. No one's complaining. Actually, people probably still would complain, but not nearly as much as they are about this clip right here, because he's basically making it out like, look, I dominated Paul Craig. No big deal. I won the fight clearly, which, listen, I don't think anyone scored the fight for Craig. I don't think you could possibly give the scorecard to Craig, but it also wasn't the type of performance where Bo Nickal was billed as a minus 1,300 favorite. That's part of it too. So just keep that in mind. But then he goes a step further and brings up Khamzat Chimaev. And of course, these two have been linked for a while just because of their styles. And there's been a bit of back and forth. I believe Bo Nickal called Chimaev's wrestling average. And of course, when you say that about that fan base, they get upset about everything. So he talks about Daniel Cormier here, saying that Bo Nickal's not ready for Khamzat Chimaev, which, by the way, he's 100% right about that. And I'm not one to side with DC usually, but he's right here. But let's listen to what Nickal has to say about DC's commentary in the fight.
When I watched the fight back, something that was a little disappointing was the commentary and just kind of hearing the way that they were looking at the fight. And it made me feel like they didn't really know what was going on as much. Because anybody that I've talked to that are people that I trust and know shoot straight with me, they're like, dude, you shut that guy out. Domination. It was a flawless victory.
That's concerning to hear. That, to me, if honest to God, I'm not the only one. Okay. I'm sure, go on social media. And again, I know fans can be wrong sometimes, but I don't know a lot of people who felt like that was a great performance for Bo Nickal. If Bo Nickal has people around him right now that said that was a dominant performance, he's got the wrong people around him, and he's got a bunch of yes men around him. Very concerning to hear this, but that's not even what we want to get into. We want to get into the Chimaev stuff. So let's see this going a little bit further.
And to hear things like, DC say, oh, he's not ready for Khamzat. And I think he was kind of trying to be respectful, but also trying to I don't know, maybe set me down a peg. It was just weird to hear. But I just feel like the people that I know that are in my corner who would give me honest, genuine feedback, they're very happy with the victory. I was very happy with the victory. And so that's what I really care about at the end of the day. But it was a little disappointing to hear some of those comments from people that I respect a lot.
Well, I mean, it doesn't get much bigger. And listen, I don't agree with Cormier all the time, but he's 100% right. Like, and listen, I saw people in my chat on Saturday after this fight, but I was very vocal about not liking the Bo Nickal fight, but there's a lot of Chimaev fans coming in my chat being like, oh, see, I told you Bo Nickal wouldn't beat him. No, like, sane fan right now thinks that Bo Nickal, even prior to this fight, no fan thought that Bo Nickal was going to beat Khamzat Chimaev. Bo Nickal made his professional debut in 2022. That's 2 years ago. Chimaev's been fighting a lot longer. He's fought a lot better opponents. I mean, overall, Chimaev has had the better resume right now, and especially after what happened to Robert Whittaker against Khamzat Chimaev. There's no way people would pick Bo Nickal over Khamzat Chimaev. There's no way. So, that all aside, because again, like, I don't think anyone smart that follows the sport thinks that Bo Nickal, even prior to this fight, was going to be Khamzat Chimaev. The fact that he can't even realize that Khamzat Chimaev just went in there and submitted Robert Whittaker, first fighter to ever submit Robert Whittaker in the UFC. And he thinks, like, basically what he's saying here is that, like, oh, it's disappointing to hear that he's not ready for Khamzat. He's not, because Khamzat Chimaev would have finished Paul Craig in 30 seconds too. And here's the thing. This is the other part of this as well, is that he's talking about how, in this clip here that, oh, well, if I finished him, people would, they'd still give me flack. I mean, again, no one said that with Brendan Allen and Borrahio, and you've got a guy who's been finished in 3 of his last 5 fights. Like, it was there for the taking. That's the reason the UFC booked this fight. And you guys know I'm a big Paul Craig fan. I've interviewed him a number of times. I like Paul a lot. But this, to me, was a fight where Bo could have gone out there and got the finish, and he didn't for whatever reason, and instead had this sort of striking match with him. Didn't even really use his wrestling, I'm guessing because of the threat of the submission that Paul Craig has. Again, this is a guy that submitted Magomed Ankalaev and Jamal Hill. But, when he tried to stand and trade with Paul Craig, it looked closer than it needed to be. Let's put it that way. And like I said, the stats back it up a little bit with that. And I guess, part of the reason I want to make this video is I'm pretty concerned with Bo Nickal going forward. Like, this is shades of Conor McGregor when he lost, where rather than, going out there and finding ways to improve and get better, he's just like, no, it was a good performance. Like, you're not going to get better if you're looking at a fight like that and not acknowledging the mistakes you've made or the performance overall. Like, am I wrong here, guys? You let me know in the comments, but Bo Nickal did not perform well in that fight. Yes, he got the win, but I'm looking at the rankings right now. Like, I don't even know what ranked opponent he could beat right now. Maybe a Michel Pereira because he gasses out. Maybe a Shara Bullock because he doesn't have great wrestling. But like, someone today in my Discord was like, Anthony Hernandez, Bo Nickal, who wins right now? There's not a question in my mind I'm taking Anthony Hernandez in that fight. Like, Bo Nickal has a lot more work to do. And it's not even just this fight either. The Cody Brundage fight that Bo Nickal had prior to this, he got the finish in that one and people weren't as critical. But still, that was a fight that, early on, it was, fairly competitive. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't go out there and beat Cody Brundage in like 30 seconds. So yeah, I just think, like, I worry going forward because I think Bo Nickal, I think there is a lot of potential. This is a guy that was a high-level wrestler that certainly has a great pedigree, and I think his game has come along great, but I just think the Paul Craig fight showed, because again, we're going from Cody Brundage to Paul Craig, and as much as Paul Craig's on the decline, this is also a fighter that, was just in there with Caio Borrahio, who's, a contender in the division. So it was a bit of a jump up. So I don't mind the fact that Bo's going to have to dial it down a bit. But my issue right now is he's not acknowledging his mistakes. And it doesn't seem like he's, willing to go back to the drawing board and fix things. So my big takeaway from this interview is Bo just doesn't get it. Bo does not know. The Bo Jackson saying in the 90s, Bo knows? Bo does not know here. And it's disappointing because I would love for him to come out and just be honest and have, or at least have the people around him to tell him the truth. That, look, that wasn't the best performance. You need to go back to the drawing board. I did a similar video to this a few months ago on Ian Gary when he was talking about the MVP fight. Same sort of thing. Ian Gary was, going on about how he dominated Michael Venom Page. The fight was much closer than it needed to be. Same situation here with Paul Craig. The difference is, you didn't hear Gary saying, everyone thought I did really well. Bo Nickal is saying that. So you got to wonder who's around him right now that's not telling him like it is, that it just was not a good fight and the type of fight that I think showed he's not ready for a ranked opponent and certainly not ready for Khamzat Chimaev. And I'll say it again. I don't think any intelligent MMA fan, even prior to this fight, thought that Bo Nickal was going to be Khamzat Chimaev. I think Khamzat Chimaev might not lose ever in the middleweight division. That's how high I am on him with what he did against Robert Whittaker. So that's kind of where I stand right now. I'm a little bit concerned about Bo Nickal, and I think this interview is very revealing to his mindset going forward in his UFC career. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What was your opinion of the Bo Nickal fight? What did you make of this interview? Like I said, I think he looks worse after doing this interview, and I do question where they go. I think the smartest move for the UFC is to continue to give him unranked opponents until he figures it out. Maybe he will. maybe this was just, talk, and maybe in a few months he will reflect and fix the things that he needs to fix. But if you're not willing to go back and look at that performance and say that was not up to par, or even worse, it might be a case of where the UFC does book him against someone good and he gets exposed, because that's going to happen if he continues with this mindset, in my opinion. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. Let me know your thoughts on the interview and Bo's performance in general. And I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching.